process. Get ready. Now, we were told to be creative with this. I am not a creative person. Naturally, I'm just not. But I do tend to have a little bit of a humorous side. As such, I see correlations between the discourse mapping process and my big, crazy family. Many of you know, I have got a large family. Now, we're not Duggar-sized or anything like that. Not really even close to it, but we're pretty big for a family in America today. Now, let's get started. First step in the discourse mapping process is prediction. My mom and dad, they got married, they did not predict. They did not predict having 10 children. They didn't. They just didn't even think about that. They didn't plan for it. They didn't think about what they would do if it happened. Nothing. That to say, you need to predict, okay? Not that you're going to end up with 10 children, don't think that. But you need to predict before you start interpreting. Why? Because if you don't, your interpretation is not going to be the best work that you can do. It's not going to be smooth. And you may encounter some outside influences that you were not prepared for and you did not think about beforehand. So you handle it in a way that does not help the situation. Secondly, confirm your details. My mom and dad couldn't confirm details because they didn't predict any. You know what I'm saying? They should have had something to confirm. This, of course, is after you watch the text. That's a given. Then you add your details. What details did you miss? What was good? What did you find correctly? What did you predict correctly? What did you not? Add them. My mom and dad definitely did follow this step. They had me, their third child, and my mom was like, no, I don't want any more children. I don't want any. And then all of a sudden, she's like, no, what am I talking about? I want 10 kids. And they just kept on adding like, woof, 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 woof. It's crazy. And they stopped at 10, and then my mom started talking about adoption. So. Now, primary, secondary, and tertiary. It's pretty self-explanatory. What are your most important details? What are your not so important details? What are your just pop them off? We don't need them. This is in the family. We got 10 children. In those 10 children, you've got different groups because it's almost like you got 2 separate generations in one family. Not really, but kind of. Well, technically, yeah. Because technically my older sister could be my younger brother's mother. I could be his mother. That's weird. So, we got your older group, you got your middle group, you got your little kid group. We got, well, we call them big kids, middle kids, and little kids. In the big kid group, you got my older sister Edith. My older brother Patrick, then me. We got primary, secondary, tertiary. Boom. Then you got your secondary, you got your middle group, and you got your little kid group. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Now we got your 11 P's. What are these P's? They are parameters that have an impact on the interpreting situation. I'm going to name them out for you. Place, power, perspective, paralinguistics, personal, professional, prosody, point, pragmatics, purpose, and participants. I did not just pull that out of my head. I was reading that off of a paper because I didn't memorize them. So, now, obviously we know that outside factors affect the interpretation process. How does this apply to my family? Oh, goodness gracious. There are so many things that affect the family unit. Money. Main one. Especially if you got 10 kids. You got friends. You got your church, if you are so inclined. You've got, I don't know, clothes. Like, that's a big factor in a family of 10 children. Can't tell you how many hand-me-downs I've worn. Alright, number 7. Whoops, sorry. Functions and features. Functions, what are those? Openings, closings, transitions. Features, what is that? That is the mode that is used to communicate the opening, closing, and transition. For example, an opening in English would be, hello ladies and gentlemen, or closing would be, have a good evening, thank you for watching. Transition, then, however, as well as also a sign language. Transition would be a pause, a nod of the head, a step to the side. Closing, you know, hands at the waist. We're done. Bye-bye. Opening, hello, hello, hello. We know this one. Now, how does this apply to the family? Oldest and youngest. We got an opening. We have a closing. Okay? The transition happens when older sibling pops off and all of a sudden, second oldest now becomes the oldest. Technically. Not really, but in the immediate household. Then you need to identify your explicit and implicit goals. You need to know the explicit goals. Why? If you do not know these, you are not going to be able to interpret them or translate them. Interpret them. Excuse me. You're not going to be able to interpret them into the target language. Now, back to the family. How does this apply? For example, okay, if my sister comes up to me and says, whoa, Margaret, your makeup is atrocious today. I mean, your face you might as well be a pirate. Whoa. Obviously implicit. We know what she's saying. Explicit. She comes up and I'm sitting here eating my takeout, my payway, my Kirby Lane. She comes up, she says, what you eating, Margaret? What is she saying? You need to give me some of that food. Because I'm more than likely going to steal it from you anyways. So you might as well just give it to me. Now, moving on. You need to identify your main goal. What is the overall goal of the interpretation text? The text. Then, you're going to identify the objectives underneath that goal. Then, you're going to organize main goal, objectives. Then you got your details, primary, secondary, tertiary, under those objectives. How does this apply to my family? Alright, well, we've got mom and dad. They are the core group. They started it all, you know. They are the big bang of the family. Starts with them. Then, you've got your big kids. You've got your middle kids. You got your little kids. And then on down from there. We already discussed this. And then you're going to retell it intralingually. That means that if you are your source language is English, you are going to retell it in English. Paraphrase it. Then you're going to analyze that retelling. We did this in intralingual class, if you have taken that class. What is that? 3 plus 3. What are your effectives? What do you need to work on? Challenges. There we go. What are your effectives? What are your challenges? Then, how are you going to fix those challenges? What's your game plan? You need to have one. Number 13. Okay. Now we're switching over to interlingual. How do I get from my source language to my text language? Number 13 is you got to identify the text language functions and features. You don't do that, you can't successfully interpretate them back and forth between. How does this correlate with the family? Back to my first example. We got an older kid, we got a younger kid. First one pops off, goes off, gets married in 3 months, I don't know. Then you got a transition, suddenly the second becomes the oldest. What are the features that allow that to happen? Because it's a big process, you know, going from, oh, we got the oldest one, she's been here for like, I don't know, 18 years. And then all of a sudden she's off doing her own thing. And all of a sudden we're like, who's the oldest anymore? We don't know. Where is our queen aunt? I don't know. So it transitions over to the second kid. How does that transition of boss happen? usually is in the form of, Mom, they're not listening to me. And then, you know, from there it's just history, whatever, it works out. 14, if you visual vernacular, constructive action, and constructive dialogue, you need to identify these. Because you need to, sign language is a visual language. So, of course, there's a space in between there that you have to jump over. You can't take a description. It's difficult to take a description in sign language and translate it into English. So you need to identify that so that you can effectively interpret it. And vice versa. If I say something in English very simply, but then in sign language you're gonna have to describe and describe and describe. You need to know that so that you can be ready for it. Then you're gonna retell it interlingually. Then you're gonna simultaneously interpretate it. So source language to target language. Then you're gonna back translate it. So target language, back map that. Take this map and the first map that you made, compare them. What was different? Did you hit on the main objectives in your first map, or did they change when you in the final interpretation? What happened? Then you're going to analyze it. Again, 3+3, UBU, time analysis. We've been through this before. Then lastly, excuse me. Lastly, you are going to identify how you can improve the things that you notice were a little off there or majorly off there. Need to improve that. You got to get your game plan ready. Now, so how does this analyzation process apply to my family? Obvious. As a family unit, you need to take a step back sometimes. You need to become a third person and look at it from the outside and say, well, these are our effectives, these are our challenges. For example, one effective in my family is we love each other a whole lot. We get angry, we yell at each other, we argue. It's kind of a normal family thing. But we are always coming back and always saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, or you offended me here, and we work it out between each other. And that's evidence of how much we love each other. And I love that about my family. Not so, let's say a challenge. There we go. Challenge for my family is, I don't know if it's because we're so big or not, but we're just really loud. We're constantly talking over each other, which inhibits communication. Also, my dad is going deaf from all the loud din. I keep telling him he needs to learn sign language so that he is prepared for when this happens. But he won't listen to me, so. Anyways, so there you have it, guys. Whenever you think of the discourse mapping process, think of me and my big crazy family. You're welcome for that visualization. I will see you in class. Bye-bye.